You're looking at GoPro footage of me floating in a tank of water with 1,000 pounds of salt in it. We spent a morning in August at the Art of Floating along Old Berwick Road north of Bloomsburg. This tank is one of 5 they have here in rooms equipped with showers and toilets. Before I got into the tank, Patrick Paulo gave me a run-through.
Our tanks are about 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 4 feet high. Inside the tank, there's 10 inches of water, and inside the water there's 800 to 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So when you get in here, we recommend that your head is at the far end and your feet closer to the door. So when you need to come out, you just have to sit up, push on this handle to open the door. Also, when you get inside, use this handle to close the door. There's no latches or locks on these doors, so they just open and close. We also have 4 holes in the back that allow air in and out, so it's never airtight, you're never locked inside. And these doors, they just open and close. Once you're inside, there's no light, there's no sound. Temperature of the water is heated to skin temperature. Also, the salt's going to create an environment where you're floating at the top of the water. So, before you get inside, we have earplugs available for you right there.
Okay.
We recommend putting them in first, taking a quick rinse, and then jumping in the tank.
After a quick rinse in the shower, it was time to get in, and sure enough, I was soon floating on top of the water. The Art of Floating touts the sensory deprivation feeling you'll get in the tank because normally the door will be shut for the entire time you're in here, and the motion-sensitive lights would soon shut off, immersing you in complete darkness until a light in the tank signals your time is up.
There's a lot of benefits of floating because there's no light, sound, gravity difference in temperature or anything. You get in like I like to say that it's like meditation on steroids because you don't have to do anything. You know, your mind automatically slows down, and you take the float for days. Like a massage, it's just that day, and you're probably going to be sore the next day and stuff, and you go to the same position. But when you're floating, it's so different because your mind is so it relaxes everything, like mind and body at the same time. So that's why you take the float with you for a couple of days, where it's different with a massage because you have all the senses still there.
Yep, like you said, works both mind and body. When you're floating in the environment with no light and no sound, it gives your brain and your mind a chance to relax. Also, body-wise, the salt in there, the magnesium is really good for you. So you're sitting in about 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So you're getting more than the recommended dose of magnesium. Mm-hmm. So in that way, it really helps the body get its magnesium that it needs to function. But also, the environment that the flotation tank creates for people, it gives if you want to think about the brain as a computer, how it's always taking in information, sometimes the brain needs rest. And even though we're sitting down now and it doesn't seem like we're doing much, our brain is still taking in light, it's still taking in sound, it's still having to compute information. But in the sensory deprivation environment that you were in, you can see how once you're laying in the salt water for about 30 minutes, you begin to rest and relax because your brain doesn't have to compute so much information. So in a way, it helps the mind relax, which a overactive, busy mind can create stress. So that way, in the tank environment, your mind is relaxing, you're beginning to experience less stress, and then you come out feeling rested and rejuvenated. So it helps both body and mind in that way.
Unfortunately for me, I have pesky camera lights on me just about all the time, and even peskier coworkers trying to film me. So my senses weren't deprived much for the 20 minutes I was in the tank. Normally, they recommend you spend an hour in the tank to get the full effects, but that wasn't possible for me for taping purposes. They say you spend most of your first time just experiencing the feeling of weightlessness and doing a little bouncing off the walls.
This is amazing! Ow! That's the bottom.
The Art of Floating has been at its location near Bloomsburg for 3 years now, although floating as a practice has been around since the 50s in places like California and Colorado. The late start here hasn't really been a problem for this unique business.
I think the numbers are doubling after each year. We, by word of mouth, and just how unique floating is and how different it is, kind of out of the box to most people, that people want to try it at least once. And then once they have that first float, they usually want to have a second float, and then they start noticing that the third and fourth floats, their bodies are feeling so much better. Plus, they're not as stressed out about their daily lives, so they're starting to also tell their friends about floating. So the numbers have steadily been increasing, and we're expecting a pretty busy winter as well, because I think people are gonna want to float more when there's not as much sunlight. So they're gonna want to float more that help better their mood. So yeah, since my time here, I've seen days where just the schedule's packed, really busy, and I think those days are coming again, especially in the winter.
Paulo and Worthington say their tanks are full much of the time, especially during Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, and they have seen their float numbers increase from 10 to 15 a week to 100 to 120 a week. While 60 minutes is the recommended time, repeat floaters often like to increase their time from 90 minutes to 2 hours and up. There have even been people who have spent the night here, 6 to 8 hours, getting a beneficial sleep. Worthington told us that she needed to ease into her floats, going for 20 minutes the first time, 25 minutes the second, and then up from there. She eventually spent 6 hours and said it felt like 2. Paulo told us he was bored for the first 30 minutes of his first float, wondering what all the hype was about, but eventually his mind relaxed and he began to experience a dream state of being half awake and half asleep. Floating is not only for people who want to relax and get away from the stressors of their world, but it's also helpful for people suffering from joint pain and other health-related ailments, and we're told the feeling you get from floating lasts for days in some cases. Now, as the saying goes, enough about you, let's get back to talking about me. I know one thing you're thinking about. Was it tough to crawl inside that tank? Didn't I get claustrophobic? Nope. Once I was inside and realized there was plenty of room, I was fine. And this is from someone who has trouble with MRIs. Also, cleanliness is one of their top priorities. Each tank is equipped with its own high-tech filtration system, and the water is filtered constantly. Epsom salts are a natural disinfectant, which also helps to keep the water sterile. And yes, despite Patrick's warning, I did put my fingers around my eyes, which meant that I got salt in them.
Okay, so I just finished about 10-15 minutes here in the flotation tub. Now, when you first get in, the first sensation you feel is how silky smooth the water is, because as he said, there's more salt in here than water. And when you sit down in here, you're fine, like I'm fine sitting in here, but the second you start to shift your weight back, you lift up off the tub. And that sensation was a little strange at first to lay down there, and I have to admit that for my first time I had trouble relaxing totally. And the interesting thing I noticed is that right away I felt stress points. Like I've always had trouble with a disc in the back of my neck, and I felt that immediately. But as you're laying there, it starts to go away because you start to relax. And the other sensation you had to get over right away was the water in your ears, which feels a little weird at first. But eventually what happens is you start to relax. Now obviously I didn't have the door shut, so I wasn't in complete deprivation. But it is an amazing feeling just to lay there and float. And as he said, your skin and the water almost start to become one as you're laying there floating. And I would recommend this for anybody as a stress relief at the very least. But I could see the health benefits of this as well, especially if you have a bad back or a bad neck.
Now the important part, the cost. It's normally $50 for an hour, but they occasionally do specials for $35 for an hour. They also may have packages for the holidays.